Since more scientific articles are being published saying that the equine hoof is supposed to be peripherally loaded and the frog and the central sole might not be as important, I just have to let you into my secret video vault to get a glimpse of what the truth really looks like. The truth is that when they only study infected hooves, they have a hard time understanding how sound hooves are supposed to work. We start with this ordinary shod hoof. The frog is impaired, as usual, but not too seriously infected. The frog is elevated as always on shod and high hoofs, and only the peripheral part of the hoof is loaded on hard footings. The hoof is placed on a hard surface, and pressure will be applied on the bone structure, simulating the horse's weight. I have connected metal rods to the hoof capsule to make it easier for you to see how it moves. We are looking for hoof mechanism, and that is when the hoof capsule is widening and the distance between the coffin bone and the hoof capsule increases. When this happens, blood gets sucked into the laminar encorium, and when the hoof becomes offloaded, the hoof wall flexes back in and presses blood out of the corium again. Hoof mechanism in the upper part of the hoof capsule would move the left blue tip more to the left and the right blue tip more to the right, and hoof mechanism in the bottom of the hoof capsule would move the left green tip more to the left and the right green tip more to the right. The up and down movement you see has nothing to do with hoof mechanism and is only because the iron shoe is uneven. The pressure is gradually increased up to about equivalent to the horse's weight, and if there is any widening of the hoof capsule, I cannot see it. Now the same hoof is put on a bed of pea rock that will fill the concave bottom of the hoof and create frog pressure, and yes, now we see much more widening of the hoof capsule. This tells us three things. First, that the shoe in itself did not lock the hoof. Secondly, that it is frog pressure that creates hoof mechanism. Thirdly, that hoof mechanism is at least as much at the top of the hoof capsule as down at the bottom. I understand that this looks completely ridiculous to you, but you will see that it works pretty much like when the hoof is on a soft footing, but it is much easier to study the movements in the back of the hoof this way. Now the shoe is removed, but since the hoof wall is too high, there is no frog pressure. Since we now know that the hoof mechanism is created by frog pressure, no one should be surprised that there is absolutely no hoof mechanism when this barefoot hoof is loaded on hard surface. The hoof is now trimmed down to hard sole and put in a sandbox, so now I believe we have the right to expect a good hoof mechanism. I believe we did get a better hoof mechanism compared to when the hoof was shod, and that is most likely because the shoe prevents the hoof from sinking down into the sand to load the frog the way the barefoot hoof does. Here the trimmed hoof is on a hard surface. Even though the frog is touching the ground, it is of such poor quality because it is infected with thrush, it does not manage to support a perfect hoof mechanism. As soon as the frog becomes infected, it loses its firmness and becomes mushy. For a frog to be able to support perfect hoof mechanism, it needs to be perfectly healthy and carry a substantial load. If we add a little firmness to this frog, we can see that the hoof mechanism increases. The conclusion of all this is that shod hoofs and infected hoofs can only get hoof mechanism on very soft footings, and not even perfect barefoot hoofs get good hoof mechanism on hard footings, but need the ground to fill its concave bottom to increase frog pressure even more.